In 2012, the NYPD made 360,000 arrests. 260,000 of those arrests were for misdemeanors. In every one of those arrests, some type of property was taken. Getting the property back is a sentence in and of itself.
My story began on October 9th, 2010. My car was rear-ended. I pulled the car over to the shoulder of the road. 40 minutes later, our lieutenant came with 3 rookies, and he just yells, "Lock him up."
I was arrested in February 2014, and the police took my keys and my cell phone.
Yo estaba con mi novio, él me iba a llevar a casa. La policía nos detuvo en una luz. La policía revisó mi bolsa, ahí estaba mi dinero, de mi cheque de los taxes. Eran $2,599 exactamente. Estaba la evidencia del cachía donde yo había cambiado el dinero, ese cheque, la copia del cheque, estaba todo el dinero junto con los papeles y ellos sacaron el dinero y los papeles lo dejaron en mi bolsa.
Whether you can rightfully retrieve your property should never depend on whether you're in the right income bracket. I think a core principle of our society is that everyone should have equal access to justice under the law.
As with other NYPD practices, it's really low-income people of color who are affected and bear the brunt of the problem. What drives the problem first and foremost is broken windows policing. Under broken windows, people are arrested for really minor, low-level offenses. Things like marijuana possession, trespassing on a neighbor's stoop, jumping a turnstile.
If you've been arrested, the NYPD must give you an invoice, also called a voucher, that lists any property that they take from you during the arrest. Whether you get your property back and when you get your property back depends on how they mark your property when they take it. If they just plan to hold it until you're released from jail, it will be marked as safekeeping. If they plan to use the property as evidence in your criminal case, it will be marked as arrest evidence. They can also mark the property for forfeiture, which will mean that in order to get it back, you'll have to fight for it in a separate case in civil court.
After being arrested, my automobile was taken to a precinct where it sat for roughly 3 months before they sent me paperwork about being sued for forfeiture.
When I went back to the precinct to get my keys, the front desk told me I needed a voucher, which I never received. So she directed me to the arresting officer, and he told me I would get the keys in court. So I went to court about 4 times and still haven't received any of my items.
El dinero duró a unos 4 meses y medio y no me lo querían devolver. Eso me trajo muchísimo problema porque yo me quedé sin casa, me quedé en la calle prácticamente. El landlord me sacó del apartamento y me tuve que mudar de allí con mi niño.
Everyone knows in criminal court that if a person is arrested and charged with a crime, they have a right to a lawyer. They have to be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And until that happens, they're innocent until proven guilty. Civil forfeiture laws turn that completely upside down. And the government just has to prove that the property is guilty by association. And in that way, property and property owners are guilty until they prove themselves innocent.
A person can be innocent and exonerated of charges, and the city will still hold on to their property is beyond egregious. I think it's malicious.
I just really hope people don't have to go through the struggle I did just to get something simple back like keys.
Entonces el gobierno tiene que cambiar ese sistema porque te violan los derechos.
The reform of civil forfeiture would set out to achieve 2 goals. One is transparency around the civil forfeiture proceedings. What property is the NYPD seizing and where the monetary value of these properties going? Is it going toward their pension funds? Is it going toward the department budget? Because it creates a situation where the NYPD is policing for profit, and that is a situation that we want to discourage. And the second goal is clarity. So you want to ensure the process by which we are retrieving our property is clear. If it's too obscure, if it's too onerous, then it requires a lawyer. And whether or not you're able to retrieve your property should not depend on whether you can afford an attorney.
These practices absolutely have to change. The laws have to be reformed. And we really need your help to make that happen.
Have you had your property taken by the NYPD? Know your rights. You have the right to an invoice, sometimes called a voucher, that says exactly what was taken from you. You have the right to get your property back if it is being held for safekeeping. Bring the invoice and 2 forms of ID to the property clerk's office in the courthouse. ID can include a credit card or a school ID. If your property is not there, it should be at the precinct where you were arrested. If you don't have 2 forms of ID, you can write a letter that lets another person who does have 2 forms of ID pick up your property. You need to get this letter notarized. You have 120 days from the date on the invoice to pick up the property. You have the right to request a release from the district attorney if your property is being held as evidence. If you have an open criminal case, talk to your lawyer about what to do. If your case is over, you can make the request directly to the district attorney. But your lawyer may be able to help speed up the process. You have 120 days from the date your case ends to pick up your arrest evidence property. You have a right to a hearing if your car is taken when you are arrested. The NYPD must give you a form called Notice of Right to Retention Hearing. If you didn't get that notice, tell your lawyer. You might be able to get your car back sooner. You have the right to make a formal demand for your property if it has been marked for forfeiture. Once you've done that, if the NYPD wants you to forfeit your property, they must file a forfeiture case against you in court. If you don't make a formal demand, the property is automatically forfeited.